Hey everyone, it's Skizik here, your casual exile. So I'm going to do this update for my RF Juggernaut, Righteous Fire, and we're going to start off by just completing a map. I have here a T15 Lava Lake. I wanted to create this video to give an update from the previous one when we were like level 80 and we had like no gear really as far as like tailored to this build. We were using Carcass Jack and basically just using like elemental overload and like uh 4 link, maybe 5 link Carcass Jack, right, with Righteous Fire. So we're just gonna go over a uh, Lava Lake map T15 here and show you kind of how we're doing. We are currently level 91 and I am going to be taking this definitely to be beating the Guardian, Shaper, attempting Uber Elder, which I'm pretty sure is going to be able to destroy it for how tanky the build is. We're going to go over the gear and stuff like that a little bit as we're running through this map, and get into that portion as far as setup and skill gems and things like that. So it's pretty quick. We use shield charge for our movement. Our life regen is very good. It's how this build kind of sustains, right? We're doing max fire resistances, getting our fire res capped as much as possible, increasing maximum fire resistance, and we're doing that by using Sappho's frame. And yeah, it's working really good. We're proccing elemental overload by shield charging into packs, and also with Stormbrand casting it as it crits, it procs elemental overload by using lightning resists. And yeah, that's how we're proccing elemental overload, which is a huge damage buff. You can see once these things, like, we'll just give a quick demonstration how it works. Let's find a blue pack. So without, see, we have elemental overload here, up right there, and we pretty much have it all the time. We'll show you Syndicate. Val Righteous Fire is a very strong part of the build. It really helps with the build and damage big time. We are also using Scorching Ray. Originally, with the first video I uploaded, we were doing totems with Balefire, and currently I'm self-casting now, and there's a couple of reasons why, and we'll get into that after the map here. Oh, come on. Yeah, okay. Really hoping for that multiple exalt drop from that currency. We'll get into why we're doing self-cast Scorching Ray as opposed to multiple totems. Mainly it's because of our Pantheon. Our Pantheon choice. So, with our Pantheons, we're choosing Tukahomas with the Divine Vessel, which increases our life regen percentage while stationary up to a maximum of 2%. And so that's pretty, and also our physical damage reduction. So while we're just casting Scorching Ray like this, we're just gaining insane amounts of life regen on top of what we already currently have. So it does pretty good. I've been very happy with the build so far. It's my first time playing RF. Ooh, we got a nice little opal ring there. Super tanky. One thing I'd like to point out is we are using cast when damage taken, linked with Immortal Call, and it is very, very, very good. If you saw there, I mean, we're running 9 endurance charges, and we're getting that from the tree and 2 pieces, or 2 rings. 2 rings, Combs Way, and we basically can just face tank Katava. And you see how long my Immortal Call lasts, like, I think it's like 5 seconds, basically, we're immune to damage. Now, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's like the fastest, like, boom, boom, crit, everything dies, right? But it's extremely sustaining, super tanky, and it does a fair amount of damage. I think PoB, Path of Building, shows somewhere around the lines of like 308,000 burning damage per second with Righteous Fire, and almost like 850,000 burning damage per second with Val Righteous Fire. One flask that's really important to get, and it's actually really cheap this league, it has been the past couple weeks because it got nerfed, is Witchfire Brew. Increases damage over time, and gives Despair, which Despair increases the amount of damage taken over time as well. This is when we'll use our Val Righteous Fire and just burn this bad boy down. And we can also hit our Immortal Call to gain our endurance charges back. And this was Shaper influence as well, which should move for us. So yeah, so that's the map. We'll go over the gear now, and keep in mind this is a little more. This is like endgame gear for me. There's some definitely things I could do to upgrade. But first we're going to talk about the helmet. So in order to get the helmet for this build, you have to get an item level 80 Elder Helmet. 83, I'm sorry, 83 Elder Helmet. And you craft this by using a Essence of Horror, which when crafted on a helmet, it adds this this mod that you see here. Socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage. So that's a multiplier to our Righteous Fire, and really increases our damage. So the expensive part of it is getting the Essence of Horrors. Right now I think they're about 30 chaos a piece in standard league, for, or not standard, but Betrayal softcore league. And I think I got pretty lucky. I think I used about 5 Essence of Horrors. And what we're looking for when we use this is we're guaranteed to get the Socketed Gems deal 30% more elemental damage from the Essence of Horror, right? And then with the item level 83 base Elder Helmet, we have a chance of getting 2 things what we're really looking for. In this case, I got Socketed Gems are supported by level 18 Concentrated Effect, which also gives another suffix mod. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a prefix mod Eldritch Tier 2 level 18 Concentrated Effect, which also increases area damage by 19% up to 22%. Now this can, with an item level 83 Elder Helmet, go up to level 20. And we can also look for Socketed Gems are supported by level 20 or level 18 burning damage, which will open up a skill gem socket for our helmet. Currently in the helmet, we are using, we get the concentrated effect from the helmet itself, plus the more elemental damage for just Socket of Gems deal 30% more elemental damage. And we're using, of course, Righteous Fire. And I'm going to add a tip here. Level up your Righteous Fires in your offhand that aren't already Val Righteous Fire, so that you can increase the quality of the gem and then try to Val it to get a Valed Righteous Fire, because a 20% quality Righteous Fire will give you 20% increased burning damage, which I'm currently in the process of. I just haven't got lucky and corrupted a 2020 Righteous Fire into a Val Righteous Fire gem. And next we're using increased area of effect, followed by burning damage, which I got lucky and got a 2120 by valing it, and then elemental focus. These two are a necessity. For bossing, for mapping, I use increased area of effect, and whenever I'm doing bosses or maybe like really linear maps like Toxic Sewers or trying to think of another map, Primordial Block or something like that. I think that's Primordial Block. But I would swap out increased area of effect for an efficacy, which also increases our damage quite a bit. Now, if you were to craft the helmet and get, you can, which is my ultimate goal, craft it with the Essence of Horror on an Elder helmet and get level 20 concentrated effect and level 20 burning damage, and then we would be able to use increased area of effect and efficacy, or efficacy and maybe swift affliction or something like that, which would really increase our damage. So that would be the end game helmet that we would really be looking for. And then for our chest piece, there is absolutely no better chest piece in my opinion for this build, which is Comb's Heart. Just gives us a huge mana or huge life increase with the 500 life, and then of course you want to try to get as highest percentage of increased fire damage. And then we will talk about, we already talked a little bit about our weapon we're using. We're using Balefire with that grants us our Scorching Ray, and I have that linked with Blood Magic, burning damage, and elemental focus as well. Now, you can use totems. You can use multiple totems set up to just really increase that that degen for their fire resistance. I personally didn't like it. Getting later into the games, I noticed that my totems were really dying quite quickly, and I was casting them a lot. And so I'm self-casting now. And for our shield, we're using Sappho's Frame. This is probably best shield in slot. It increases all of our maximum resistances by 4%. Gives us all res, a little extra spell damage, which increases our righteous fire damage as well. So this shield is really good. Currently, right now, I'm socketed with Purity of Fire, one of the most important auras that we're using, because it increases our maximum fire resistance, which with the shield and this, we're plus 8% to maximum fire resistance. We're like 82 or 83. We'll just take a look. So our maximum fire is 84%, which really increases our damage that we take from Righteous Fire by quite a bit, which is like a necessity for this build. Then we also have, this is where I have my Immortal Call and cast 1 damage taken. Now you can self-cast Immortal Call. I have seen that with people playing this build before, especially when fighting later game bosses like Uber Elder and Shaper. You can just like pop your Immortal Call when maybe Shaper comes down and slams, which is really helpful, a little safer. While mapping and doing the maps, I mean, I'm almost instant Immortal, always proccing Immortal Call, basically immune to damage for 5 seconds, very little downtime with Immortal Call. And then rings, another very huge part of this build. Home's Way. What this does is, because we are running maximum endurance charges with the Juggernaut and the main benefit of this is 0.4% of maximum life regenerated per second per endurance charge. So we have a maximum of 9 endurance charges, and this increases our life regen substantially, and we are using 2 of them, which gives us our 0.8% of maximum life regenerated per second per endurance charge with both rings. Times that by 9, it's a lot of life regen. And it's very good. They're quite expensive this league. They've been expensive. They're just really good rings. You can get this through the prophecy. You use Comb's sign, which is a pretty frequent drop of a unique ring, and then maybe you can spam prophecies with Navali and maybe get the King's Path, which is what the prophecy is to get Comb's Way. Next, we'll talk about gloves. Basically, you're just looking for life and resist on your gloves as much as you possibly can. I needed dexterity, so I ended up getting a pair of Titan gauntlets here, as you can see, with 50 dex, which really helps me use things like faster attacks and stuff like that. In my gloves, I have my Storm Brand with my increased critical strikes to proc my elemental overload that we get on our passive tree, and I have our Enduring Cry to I just self-cast this to boost or regain our endurance charges, and then Vitality. Vitality is another aura that is a necessity for this build, in my opinion, which really increases our life regen per second. So that is a really good aura that we're going to be using here. And then we'll move on to our boots. For your boots, for your lab enchant, you're really looking for life regen, percentage of life regen on your labyrinth enchant, which I don't have yet. I haven't gotten lucky enough to get it. And then you're looking for as much life and as much resist as you possibly can, because we're using quite a few uniques here between our gear. And then onto our amulet. We'll go through the gems. So for moving, I am using Fortify, faster attacks, increased critical strikes, which also helps us proc our elemental overload as we're running through maps, slamming into packs. If we crit, we gain that damage boost, right? And then with shield charge, I do like running leap slam from time to time, depending on the map. Also delving, I really enjoy using leap slam over shield slam or shield charge during delving. It really helps you get in and out of those nooks and crannies while you're delving and not having to waste so many flares. Very good delving build. I tend to always use efficacy when I delve because it's such narrow hallways and narrow caverns and things like that. Increased area of effect isn't actually needed, in my opinion. So efficacy is always being swapped while delving. And then onto our amulet. I highly suggest getting a marble amulet and crafting something maybe with some essences for resists and life. Marble amulet has the implicit of percentage of life regenerated per second, so that's a really good amulet to get. And then for our belt, this is probably one of your, besides your helmet, would be to get an elder belt, which needs to be, I think item level 80 is, yeah, item level 80 is the max it has to be, so it's fairly easy to get and fairly cheap too. But the problem with it is you have to craft. The mod that we're looking for is the 20% increased life recovery rate. Now this increases our regen substantially. Very, 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 very good for this build. Not necessary, but it's, I would say I would get this probably after your helmet. I wouldn't even worry about getting the Comb's Heart before I get this. Comb's Way, they're kind of they're pretty close together. If you can get your Comb's Way before this, that's fine, or vice versa. But this is a very important part of the build. We'll move. So that covers pretty much all of our gear. Like I said, for the flasks, honestly, the best one in slot for your unique flask is Witchfire Brew, which is basically using your curse, your one curse can be granted with this. Increases your damage over time during the effects. Big damage boost here, so this is good. And then have a remove freeze flask. Onslaught for faster shield charging. Now you can use a ruby flask in place of your onslaught flask. It really helps with increasing your regen whenever it is active because you take 20% less fire damage, right? Which is the new change with this new league with elemental resist flasks like topaz, rubies, sapphires, and such. I use 2 life flasks, one for instant to remove poison, and then remove bleed. That's I don't think you need 2 life flasks. It's just kind of what I run. You could use maybe an armor or like a granite flask if you want. But this is what I'm using. Next, we'll go over what we got. Do bandit choices. So I actually decided to save this for this video because it's a little helpful hint for those that may not know. But for bandit choices, in the very beginning, I chose oak, which increases your life regen by 1%. Increase 1% life regenerated per second. And you can do that. I highly suggest it early on because maybe some of the gear that you don't have, it'll really help you increase your sustaining while using Righteous Fire. So what we can do here is I'm going to currently change it because I have enough life regen now that I don't need oak. If you do choose oak and you want the 2 passives like I'm going to now, you can take 20 regrets and an onyx amulet, and they give you a book of reform and gain Aramir's favor, which gives me 2 passive points in place of oak, which I took early when I started this build. So we do that, and then we're going to gain our 2 passive points, and we're going to lose the regen, additional physical damage reduction, and 20% increased global physical damage, which we don't even use. So this is why we're doing this. And then I get to take these 2 points. And for the path of building will be in the description below for like the whole tree and everything. These 2 points I'm doing because I'm going to be getting these 2 nodes here, which is going to increase our damage by about 6,000, almost 7,000 damage per second with our burning damage with these 2 nodes here. And then we'll get another jewel socket, which we're going to go over our jewels next, which is also pretty important in this build as it increases our damage substantially. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to go over Pantheon choices now. So for Pantheon choices, you have a couple you could do. Early on, I suggest going with Soul of Arakali. You take reduced damage taken from damage over time, so that's a little more sustained against our Righteous Fire while it is active. And a later game, I chose to go over to Soul Solaris, which increases or decreases our physical damage taken, and 20% chance to take 50% less area damage from hits. And then also, if we take a critical strike, we can't take critical strikes for a certain amount of time. So take no damage, no extra damage from critical strikes if you've taken a critical strike recently. So it's really good. And then for so if you're using Soul of Arakali early on, which is really good, Soul of Abrath is also very good early on. You reduce damage taken by fire and 100% reduce effect burning ground on you. This is really good early on. A little later game, after I suggest switching from Soul of Arakali to Soul of Solaris and making sure you do the capture Jorah Sky's Edge, which you use with a Divine Vessel in your map device with the corresponding map. For your minor one, after you gain some of your gear, This one is why we are now using self-cast Righteous Fire. While stationary, gain 2 additional physical damage reduction every second up to a maximum of 8. And then if you do the Captured Tash and Warmaker, which is the Siege map, while stationary, gain 0.5% of life regenerated per second every second up to a maximum of 2%. So it's really good. It increases our life regen even more than what we currently have. And this is my recommendation for your Pantheons. And then we're going to get into our tree and our jewels. I'm not going to get too much into tree pathing because that's all in the path of building, which will be in the description below as said. But we will look at our jewels. So every jewel that we have, so total we're going to have 1, 2, not that one, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I missed this one. I think 7 jewels, right? So in our 7 jewels, we're really looking for, honestly, just the two mods here, which is increased maximum life and increased burning damage. So 7% increased maximum life. What this is doing is the bigger our life pool, the more damage we do with burning our Righteous Fire. And then 20% increased burning damage. It's just more damage. We're already gaining so much life from the tree. We really just need to boost that damage as much as we can. So in our jewel slots, we're looking, in basically all 6 jewels you're looking for, in my opinion, from top to bottom for priorities would be increased maximum life, and then burning damage, and then fire damage, and then all res. Because we're going to need some resistances. If our Immortal Call procs, we lose a little bit of resists. So if you're running like Elemental Weakness map or something like that, you might be a little shy on resist because of some of the uniques that we're using. So, I mean, the bread and butter jewel that you'd be looking for would be 7% increased maximum life, 15% increased fire damage, 20% increased burning damage, and 10 to all res. That would be the bee's knees jewel for this build. If you could have 7 of those, you would be in business. So that's what we're looking at for jewels. As we mentioned, resistances are very, 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 very important for this build, especially fire, because we take so much fire damage based on our life pool and how Righteous Fire works against us. As far as we burn for 90% of our maximum life per second as fire damage. So we got to increase that fire damage to take less fire damage, right? Or increase fire resistances as much as we possibly can to decrease the fire damage that we take. Things that this build doesn't like. When you're running maps, minus max res is never good. Players have reduced life recovery rate. When you get into higher maps, you'll notice that you get rolls of maps with like minus 12 max res with 60% player life recovery rate. These are not good for us. So if you're looking for a build that can do all maps, this is not one of them. Unfortunately, we get quite a few of these rolls on these maps. And then another really important one is no life and mana regeneration on a map. We cannot run that. We will instantly die when we pop our Righteous Fire. So be wary of those. It's an unfortunate event when we get some Valed maps and they have those on them. Just sell them, buy another one, and try to re-roll it. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, I hope this helps. From the previous video I made, this is probably one of my most favorite builds that I've played as far as tankiness goes. I rarely die, and if I do, it's because I do stupid things like running max res or minus max res maps, or forget that it doesn't have regen, or just do some really stupid map mods. But you can go quite far as doing some extremely risky maps that other builds just wouldn't be able to handle. So yeah, I think that's it for this guide for this RF Juggernaut. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If I missed anything, please comment below, and you can also see me playing live this build currently. I will be running with it on twitch.tv/skizixtr, and also the paste bin will be down in the description below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe to my channel because it would really help me out. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Oh, and remember, play the game casually because it's the best way to play it.